Good morning, everyone. As Father Carlos mentioned at the beginning of Mass, this is Gaudete Sunday. Gaudete in Latin means rejoice in the English language, and we find that all throughout our antiphon, our opening prayer, even our first reading. It was rejoice, 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 and that's why we wear this rose color. And the word gaudete actually comes from the noun in Latin, Gaudium. And I know I've shared this, I think at Daily Mass a few years ago here. I had a wonderful professor in Spain 30 years ago. He was a small little Franciscan priest, but he spoke 12 different languages, and he was our Latin professor. And he was explaining how there's some words in Latin that you have to use like a lot of other words and other languages to explain it. For example, in the English language, we say joy or happiness, but we don't have nuances about them, so we have to throw an adjective in front. And he explained to us that there's basically two ways that they communicate in Latin about joy. And the first one is called Gaudium. And he said Gaudium is this really profound, deep-seated joy, the type of joy that you can have even in the midst of turmoil, because it's really based on God. It's really finding your home in God, knowing that He's always with us. But he said the joy that most people in the world think about is the laetitia joy, and that's kind of like the big grinning smile and everything, and that's a much more superficial joy. It's not bad, it's just that it can come and go a lot more than the Gaudium does. And he was explaining this difference between it, and I remember learning a really good spiritual lesson that laetitia will come and go. What I really want is the Gaudium. And what I really want for all of us today on this Gaudete Sunday is that we really get in touch with what is the source of my Gaudium, of my deep-seated joy. Now you may be saying to yourself, Father, this is so bizarre that you're speaking about joy, deep-seated or superficial joy. Like, do you have your head in the sand? Have you not seen the recent current events? And the answer is yes, I have seen the recent current events. And so the question becomes like, well, how can we have this joy amidst so many tragedies? You all heard, I'm sure, the recent news of what transpired in Jersey City. And I remember when I heard it on the news, I was very sad, upset about it. I heard the police officer died, the people in the store. And then as it started to dawn on me as I heard the story, I said, that's right next to our sister school. That's right near Sacred Heart. And then as the story unfolded, found out that bullets actually went into our school. They broke the windows, and that whole big gunfire that went on. And the kids were on lockdown for a long time. And actually 3 of our parishioners were teaching there that morning. They literally got out just about half an hour before all this craziness began. The next day I did speak with Sister Frances. She's the principal, and in her inimitable style, she's like, Father, don't worry about it. We're under control. We're fine. The kids are good. And she did have the kids all protected during that time. But obviously, very sad, tragic moment. And then our sister parish, you've all heard the news in Franklin Lakes. Sadly, that 26-year-old young man does this crazy thing in the middle of the night and torches the entire church after writing all that graffiti. And that's our sister church. Actually, it's our daughter church. Most Blessed Sacrament came off of St. Elizabeth's back in 1960. So I went there the very day of the fire, and I was with the pastor trying to console him a little bit, tell him that we're here for him, brought him some supplies that they would need, and told them that they can come here for anything, weddings, baptisms, whatever they need. But thank God they're going to rebuild, and they'll be fine, and no one died in the fire. But through the week, I have to say that the people that really came to my mind were that young man's family. I've been praying so hard for his parents and his family. What a devastating, difficult time it must be for them as well. So you say to yourself, joy, deep-seated joy, the reality of tragedy in our lives. How do we balance them? And the answer is actually found in today's second reading. Today's second reading by James speaks about, and it uses 4 times the word patience. Right? Jerry knows because she just read it. Patience, 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 patience. And I love this little image, right? How oftentimes our heavy feet, our gas pedal kind of impatiently driving behind others and stuff. But the word patience from the Latin comes from the same verb passio, which means to suffer. So what patience is all about, patience is learning how to suffer, how to kind of suffer in silence, how to endure, how to put up with the tribulations that we all face in life. So I wanted this homily, though, to be a homily where kind of like the rubber hits the road. I really kind of want to challenge all of us. And I put this picture of this angry driver engaging in his own private road rage. And it reminded me of that phrase my mom taught us when we were kids. I'm sure you've all heard it. Patience is a virtue. Find it if you can. Seldom in a woman. Never in a man. I kind of disagree with my mom on that one, but how true it is. So this past week, I was speaking to the kids at our school, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade. And I was teaching them out the importance of delayed gratification. We said, we live in a world of instant gratification, and we really have to learn delayed gratification in our lives. And you girls, well, you heard that before in other years, right? So what I wanted to speak about, and I'll get back to that in a little moment, because I was asking the kids for examples of where they can practice delayed gratification. But what I wanted to share with you, one of our parishioners sent these photographs to me. Her granddaughter's name is Juliet, and Juliet's a charming little girl. And Juliet has set up in her home her own little Bethlehem. Here's the Star of Bethlehem. Here's the little crib in the stable. And here's the little well and the things along the way. And she was explaining to Grandma how Mary and Joseph were going to get to Bethlehem. They have their little car here, right? And if driving doesn't work, they have their little airplane or a little helicopter there that will guide them down. And actually, it's very cute if you look at it up close, right? There's Mary setting the little GPS for Joseph and everything, and so they can drive down there and all that kind of stuff. And it's 90 miles. If you and I were to drive it today, it'd take you about an hour and a half, 2 hours to get down there. But was that the reality? Was that the reality of what Mary and Joseph could do? They had to go from Nazareth to Bethlehem, 90 miles, on foot, on the back of a mule. I love the face of Joseph here. The reality is that those were 10 very uncomfortable days. You women who have been pregnant, imagine if the last 10 days of your pregnancy, your husband had you on the back of a mule carrying you down there. Would you have to practice patience with each other and patience with God and patience in everything? There were no hotels. There were no real ways to stay out of the elements. Mary and Joseph had to do this trek. So I wanted to make this, as I said, where the kind of rubber hits the road. So I thought I would challenge all of you. From Wyckoff, New Jersey to Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, it is also 90 miles. So I want you to make the journey. You're going to need 10 days. I want you to walk from Wyckoff. Get there in 10 days. Make sure your wife is very pregnant and very uncomfortable. You can't stop at a hotel. You can't do anything. And you just have to walk this distance. And you have to be there in 10 days. Would any of us attempt that? No. We live in a very, very comfortable world. We live in a very impatient world. That would be totally unacceptable. So going back to the kids and talking about driving, I asked the kids about some examples of impatience in the adult world. And this applies to all of us. And I said, kids, if you're at a stoplight and there's a car in front of you and it's red, and then all of a sudden it goes green, but the car in front of you doesn't move, what happens? They're like, Mom lays it on the horn, big time, right? And all the other cars behind us, they all honk and honk and honk. We're not very patient with one another. And it's very funny how fast the kids were throwing their parents under the bus with that. You know where the rectory is. On the corner there, the corner of Greenwood and Wyckoff Ave. If you drive here, you know that's a very hard left turn to make, either the left this way or the left that way. And my office is right there. My bedroom's actually right on the corner. So sometimes, there's these road rage incidents that happen right at that corner. People get angry at each other. They honk the horn. They're trying to get out. They're not very Christian with each other, right? So not too long ago, there was actually a road rage incident that happened there. I was working at my desk, and I heard these two cars. They're honking the horns, and they actually crashed. So I went out, and as I went out, I discovered that they were two of our parishioners. And they were yelling at each other and screaming at each other and all stuff. So I go out, and I start yelling at them. And I turn to them, and I said, Deacon Andy, Father Carlos, stop that nonsense and get back to work and everything. Right? It's true. No, I'm only kidding you. Of course it's not true. But it is true sometimes in our world. Isn't it many times that we get impatience with each other? Many times, isn't it true that we lose focus on where our true joy, our Gaudium, our deep-seated joy should come from? I really hope and pray that on this Gaudete Sunday, we may really rediscover once again that deep-seated joy, know where it is, and then practice it in our lives. And be patient with one another. And be a Christian, not only in church, not only when I pray, but be a Christian when I'm behind the wheel, when I'm driving. Sound good? In the name of the Father, and the Son, Holy Spirit. Amen.